All right, hello everyone. I hope this is working. This is my first attempt at a live stream. So today I'm going to be going over your South India, some of the short answer questions and what some answers would be. Because for these short answer questions, you already know that they are going to be on the test, all right? So I'm going to start right at the top of your study guide. And I am going to just read this and start by doing that, and then I'll go in depth a little bit more as we get into it. All right, so if you're home, follow along with me in your own study guide. So starting at South Asia is home. All right. South Asia is home to the world's tallest mountains, the Himalayas. The region is large and separated by water from other land areas. It is called a subcontinent. So, if you look on this globe, here's India right here, the pink. And right here, if you could feel it, or maybe you could see in the video, this part is raised a little bit. This is where the Himalaya mountains are. So, because of all of these mountains, India, the pink, is separated from the rest of Asia. So that's why it's called a subcontinent, because it's too small to be its own continent. It's still part of Asia, but because of the Himalayan mountains all the way across the top here, it's kind of cut off from the rest of Asia. So it could almost be its own continent. So that's why it's called a subcontinent, because of the Himalaya mountains. All right. So, according to a theory called plate tectonics, Earth's surface is made of slow-moving plates. So, we learned in science about the layers of the Earth. So, underneath the Earth, there's these plates. And they line up like this. And basically, what happened was the subcontinent used to be part of everything was all together. And then this part broke off and moved up into here. So everything used to be all together. And then because of the plates moving, the Indian subcontinent broke off and started moving upward. And this wasn't something that anybody could feel. This happened very slowly over millions of years. All right. So the bigger plate may have contained the rest of the European and Asian landmass. The smaller plate pushing up under the larger plate, so there's a smaller one under here, and it started pushing up, and then it formed the Himalayan mountains. All right? And so again, these plates are underneath the Earth's surface, and they're always moving, but they're always moving very, very slowly. So some scientists think that the Indian subcontinent used to be part of a different landmass, and then because of the plates pushed it up northward until it collided with the larger plate of Asia and Europe. Okay. So the second part, there are 8 countries that are part of South Asia. So we already talked a little bit about India, which is the pink. And then we also have Pakistan, which is right here, the green. Nepal, it's a little one right here. Bhutan, right here. Afghanistan, right here. And then we also have Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and the Maldives. So Bangladesh is right here, the little green. Sri Lanka is right here. And the Maldives are little islands right here. Okay. So even with all the different landforms that are part of South Asia, much of the climate is the same. So on your study guides, now I'm right down here. Even with all the different landforms, much of South Asia has the same climate. They have 3 seasons. The monsoon season is the rainy season. This season is very important to farmers who depend on the rains for crops. 3 rivers flow through the subcontinent: the Indus, the Ganges, and the Brahmaputra. Their source is the Himalayas. So this water comes from the mountains up in the Himalayas, and then it flows down into these 3 rivers: the Indus, the Ganges, and the Brahmaputra. All right. So their source is the Himalayas. They spread out across the wide, flat plain called the Indo-Gangetic Plain. The rivers carry water and silt to irrigate and enrich the fields. So that's just like some of the other rivers, other river valleys that we've learned about at the beginning of the year. These rivers are also bringing water and silt that farmers can use, and we have those systems of irrigation. So those trenches that are dug so that water from the rivers can come in and water the plants even when it's not raining. All right. Crops grown on the plain are barley, wheat, rice, peas, beans, and other vegetables. Many families grow food just for themselves. Sometimes they trade food with small groups of people in their village. This is called subsistence farming. They do not sell much of their crops. So subsistence farming, that means that they are mostly farming just on a little patch of their own land to feed themselves and maybe share with other people in their community or trade a little bit of it. But they're not selling most of their crops. It's called subsistence farming. All right. Now in the next section, the Deccan Plateau. The Deccan Plateau is south of the Indo-Ganges Plain. The climate is dry and needs more irrigation. The plateau is rich with volcanic soil. So some of you, if you're in my group, you may have this packet that I handed out. Now, if you go to the last page in it, this is a picture of the Deccan Plateau. And because it's really, really dry there, they have to use irrigation. So this is a picture of irrigation. You see the trench that they built to have water from the river come in so that they can still water their crops even though it's really, really dry. And I'm not sure how clear this picture is going to come out here, but here you can see the volcanic soil that they use. So it's all black soil because it comes from the volcanoes. And on the page right, you can see the Himalayas up here. You can see the Indo-Gangetic Plain. All right. So this gives you a little bit of a picture of the geography of India. And we did several activities in class on that as well. You probably have maps at home. All right. So now I'm on this section right here. Most people work as farmers in India. People fish and farm along the coasts. Island nations export tea, coconuts, fish, and rubber. So the countries that are in the Indian subcontinent, we went over that were the islands, so Sri Lanka and the Maldives. They export or send out to sell tea, coconuts, fish, and rubber. Manufacturing is another important industry. Many people also work in the clothing and textile industry. Right, so we have farming, fishing, manufacturing, and then clothing and textile. So those are the main things for jobs in India. All right. Now we're on the next section, the last big chunk on page 2. People began to settle in the Indus River Valley in 3,500 BC. But civilization didn't actually begin until 2,500 BC in 2 cities, Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro. The people in these cities had a system of writing that we have not been able to decode. So we found these writings from their civilization civilizations, but we can't figure out what they're actually saying. Okay. They were also farmers who stored grain, worked with metal. They had crafts and pottery made out of the metal, and they wove cotton and traded and sold goods. Statues of gods showed they were religious. People made toys and beads. During this time, the Harappa civilization thrived and its culture spread throughout the Indus Valley. All right. Top of the next page, starting in 1500 BC. So, in 1500 BC, the Aryans migrated to the Indus River Valley. They crossed through the Hindu Kush Mountains and through the Khyber Pass. The Aryans spoke Sanskrit, and they lived a nomadic way of life, herding cattle, sheep, and goats. So if you remember from our other unit, nomadic, or if they're nomads, that means that they were moving around from place to place. They weren't really staying still in one spot. They were following the animals. The Aryans created new technology, like the hiskos, which were drawn by horses. They also developed towns where they farmed and traded. The Aryans didn't leave many objects behind, but they did leave literature behind. Their stories and songs were written down in books called Vedas. So this is important. The Aryans contributed to Hinduism, which we're going to get into more later on. But the Vedas are important to know for one of your short answer questions. So the Aryans wrote stories and songs that ended up becoming part of the Hinduism religion, and they were put in these books called the Vedas. All right, next section. The Aryans believed what you did in life had a lot to do with who you were. Priests and teachers, or Brahmins, had the highest position in society. Warriors, kings, and other rulers were the next position, followed by the cultivators, who were artisans, traders, and merchants. The Sudras, or serfs, were the lowest position. The Persians from the north began to arrive in the Indus River Valley. Armies sent by Persian kings moved into two regions of the Indus River Valley. So I want to pause here for 1 second and go into the other packet again. On the third page of this packet is the Hindu caste system. So at the top were the Brahmin, who are the priests and teachers. The next were the rulers and warriors. Next were the merchants and landowners. And at the bottom were the Sudras, or the servants. And then the lowest caste was called the untouchables. So they did the jobs that nobody wanted to do, like cleaning the streets and things like that. And so we're going to touch on this a little bit later on. But so every Hindu is in a class or a social group, and they're born into this, and they can never change. When they're born into it, and they stay in that same caste for life. It doesn't matter. They can't get out of it. And you can only marry someone who's in your own class. So if I'm a Sudra, I can't marry somebody who is in a ruler or a warrior in a higher position. All right? So, and finally, even though today the Indian government doesn't support the caste system, it's still a part of daily life in India. All right, it's just not officially supported. They still follow it. All right. So, going on to this next section, and you can also, if you're following along in the other packet, this is the first page of this packet. The last section here goes along with this. So you can see some pictures of what I'm talking about. And this is also important because one of your short answer questions is to list 3 facts about the Persian Empire, and this paragraph is all about the Persian Empire. All right, so Cyrus II, there's his picture right there. Cyrus II was the founder of the Persian Empire. So that could be one of your facts right there. So he started the Persian Empire. Persian culture was similar to the culture of the Babylonians, Lydians, and Egyptians. So if we look on the map, the green represents the Persian Empire. And in here, I see Lydia up here, Babylonia, and Egypt, and they're all within the green. So it makes sense that their culture, that the Persian culture, was similar to the Babylonians, Lydians, and Egyptians. Because after the Persians took over and invaded their lands, all the cultures kind of mixed together. Right. At its height, Persia was made up of 20 provinces linked with a system of roads. So all of this green was broken up into like 20 little chunks or provinces. You could think of them as states, like we have states in our country. So they had 20 provinces and they were linked by roads. So that's an important thing that the Persians did because India, remember, because of all the mountains, it was kind of cut off from the rest of Asia. But with these roads and trade helped connect it a little bit to the rest of the Asian continent. Okay. King Darius I, who came after Cyrus, brought the Persian Empire to India. So there's a picture of King Darius I. And so he invaded more land and pushed the empire all the way out to this lighter green where India is. So these levels of green, the darker green is where the Persian Empire under Cyrus, when he started out, and then under Darius, he pushed it out even further all the way to India. And like I said before, the development of roads and trade by the Persians connected India with other lands in Central Asia. South Asian culture spread to the rest of the world. Zoroastrianism is a religion founded by the Persian prophet Zoroaster that was brought to South Asia by the Persians. So from this that I just went over here, or looking on the first page of this packet on the Persian Empire, find 3 facts about the Persian Empire that you can really remember and you can write about tomorrow. And as long as you know 3 facts, you'll get full credit on that short answer question. Okay? All right, going on to the next page. Starting right here at about 3,200 BC. 320 BC. About 320 BC, the Mauryan Empire, which was the first Indian empire, began. The government was highly organized. It controlled many aspects of life. The Mauryan Empire ended about 185 BC. During the Gupta Empire, India made many great achievements and expanded with the development of the number system. Literature, poetry, and art also flourished. Architects designed elaborate temples made of stone. So the Gupta Empire made a lot of accomplishments. All right? And now down here, the last section of this page, now we're talking about Hinduism. Hinduism is the main religion in India. Hinduism is different than other religions because it has no founder. So there's nobody that they point to as starting it. Hinduism started with the religious beliefs of the Aryans and the first people who lived in the Indus River Valley. So the Aryans' religious beliefs from a long time ago kind of started this whole new religion of Hinduism. But there's no one person, no one founder that they point to as starting the religion. There are 4 Vedas, remember we mentioned that earlier, which are a collection of over 1,000 hymns that priests recite at ceremonies. The hymns are all dedicated to Aryan gods. So, you can think of the Vedas as similar to the Quran, the Bible, the Torah. It's a holy book, and it's the holy book of the Hindus. And it contains all of these hymns or songs and prayers to their Aryan gods. Okay? And if you look in your packet, this other packet again, well, actually, this is a new packet I haven't shown you yet, but this is the packet that I made for my group of students to help with the short answer. So this is one of the short answer questions, and this is the Rig Veda. This is what it looks like inside some of the writing. And remember, all this writing is are songs or hymns and prayers to their Aryan gods. So you can use this information here to help you write this. And I'm going to go over some samples when we get through the rest of this. Okay. So now we're on the next page right here, starting at Hinduism is a religion of many beliefs. Okay. Hinduism is a religion of many beliefs. Some Hindus recognize only one universal being, known as Brahman, that is considered the source and final destination of everything. 3 forms of Brahman are Brahma, the creator, which on the second page of this packet, here they are. So we have Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. 7 doctrines or truths are important to the Hindu religion. So again, you can follow along here. These are the 7 truths. Peaceful living, freedom of thought, respect for nature and animals, becoming one with Brahman, and the belief that good and bad actions will one day affect us. And the word for that is karma. So if you're nice to people, then you'll have good karma. Good things will probably happen to you. If you're mean or you do bad things, then maybe some not so good things will happen to you in your future. So those are the 7 doctrines or truths of Hinduism. And Hindus also believe in reincarnation, which is the process which a person goes from one life to the next. So it would mean that when I die, I might be reincarnated. I would come back to life in a different form. So maybe I come back in a higher caste. Maybe I come back as a different creature, not a human. Maybe I come back as an animal. All right. So the next section, this is about the caste system, which we talked about a little bit earlier. Every Hindu is traditionally a member of a caste, a lifelong social group into which you are born. Every caste member is a part of Hinduism. So even if you're at the very bottom, you're still considered part of Hinduism. The caste system is just part of that. So every caste member is a part of Hinduism. Castes determine which job you are qualified for, and marriages are only permitted between people of the same caste. The highest caste was priests and teachers. Rulers and warriors are next, and then farmers and merchants. The lowest castes were the servants, who are considered untouchable. Since 1950, the government has made discrimination based on caste illegal, but it is still a part of daily life in India. All right. Final section on this page, talking about Siddhartha Gautama. Siddhartha Gautama was the man known as the Buddha, or the Enlightened One. When he was young, his father kept him protected behind the palace walls. When Siddhartha became an adult, he left the palace and for the first time saw a sick person in a nearby village. Then he saw a monk who had no possessions, but seemed to be calm and free from suffering. Siddhartha thought about this and decided to leave his comfy life in the palace and start a lifelong journey. Now, this is important as well because this is your third short answer question. And in this bit, and so if you remember the class activity we did where we had to sequence the events of his life, your short answer question is kind of similar to that because you need to include 3 main events in his life that you would include in a summary of him. So 3 things that happened. So just to go over this a little bit more. So he was known as the enlightened one, or the Buddha. Enlightened means it's like when you reach a point of pure goodness. And so when he was young, when he was a kid, his dad wanted to keep him behind the palace walls. He wanted to keep him in the palace because he thought that if he did that, that then he would become a great ruler one day. And if he ventured out, then he'd become a teacher. But when he became an adult, Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, decided he wanted to leave. So he did, and when he saw a monk. A monk is somebody who is religious and they live on very few things. It's a very simple life. And so he saw this monk who didn't seem to have any possessions or any things. Yet, even though he didn't have anything, he was very calm and he didn't seem to be suffering at all. He seemed to be happy. So that got him thinking, and he decided he was going to leave all of his comfy things that he had in the palace, and he was going to go off and try to learn more about this. All right. The final page of the blanks. So starting here about his life, Siddhartha joined. Siddhartha joined a group of men who also sought understanding and simple living. For 6 years, they fasted. So I know a lot of you fast, and this isn't exactly the same kind of fast where you don't eat any food at all. He was eating just very, very little food, okay? So for 6 years, they fasted. They practiced meditation, a way of clearing the mind. So that's kind of like what we're supposed to do in the morning. At the end of the announcements, we're supposed to just sit there and do some breathing. We just think and reflect. That's like meditation. So they practiced meditation, a way of clearing the mind. Siddhartha began to feel weak and left the group. So after the 6 years, he started to feel weak. He left the group, and then he ate more food, and he felt refreshed, and then he began his journey again. Siddhartha saw a beautiful star and realized he never lost what he was looking for. All people, he believed, had the power to be free from suffering. So he didn't think that you had to be in a high caste or anything special to be enlightened, because he's called the enlightened one, pure good. But he said, it's not just me, it's not just people at the top of the caste system. Anyone can be enlightened and free themselves from suffering. So from that point on, he became known as the Buddha, and he became enlightened. He reached this point of pure goodness. For 50 years, he traveled and taught. The Buddha stressed that all people could reach enlightenment or a state of pure goodness. Okay. Buddhism is based on 4 noble truths about human suffering. So if you flip to the next page here, the second to last page in this packet has this pretty picture on it. These are the 4 noble truths, and then it also talks about the Eightfold Path. So the 4 noble truths about human suffering are to help understand enlightenment. So the 4 noble truths say that suffering is a part of life for all people. All people experience pain and suffering, and he said it's because they want so many things in life. And if people free themselves from wanting all of these things, then they will not suffer, and people can free themselves from wants and suffering by following the Eightfold Path. So, one of these Four Noble Truths says to follow the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is a way of living that can help people find relief from suffering. The Eightfold Path recommends people develop 3 qualities: wisdom, like an intelligence, wisdom; morality, which is doing the right thing, being a good person; and meditation, which again is that clearing the mind, breathing, relaxing, thinking. All right. So those are all the fill in the blanks that I just read through. Now we're on to the short answer. So if you're in my group, I would have handed out one of these to you. And as I do this, I want you to write down some things as well. And I'm going to show what I am expecting out of my group, which is a bit of a modified version. And then for the rest of you, we're expecting some more details added in, okay? And those questions are the same thing that are on this page. They're the same thing here. I've just added some pictures and some of the information right onto here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with this. The first question is, what was the role of the Rig Veda in the Hindu religion? All right, so remember, you can flip back in your packets, and if you have this one, I have some information right here. So to recap, the Rig Veda is the oldest of the Vedas. So remember, there's 4 Vedas, there's 4 holy books. The Rig Veda is the oldest one. And so whatever religion you might practice, or one that you remember us learning about before, think of the Quran, the Bible, the Torah. It's very similar to that. So it's filled with those hymns or songs that are basically prayers to Aryan gods. And the hymns, the songs, talk about the power of nature. And they are sung at ceremonies and rituals such as weddings or funerals. That's when people might open up the Rig Veda and recite some of these. And Hindus are expected to memorize the hymns. So they don't even really have to open the book and look, because by the time it's the ceremony, they would have them all memorized and they would just recite them. So if you're in my group, you're going to have some sentence stems for the test tomorrow. And otherwise, it's just restating. So we can say, again, the question is, what was the role of the Rig Veda? What was the role of the Rig Veda in the Hindu religion? So, in Hindu religion, the Rig Veda, my group, this will already be on your test. This is restating the question. You could also say, the role of the Rig Veda in Hindu religion is, and then give your answer. Either of those would be fine. So the Rig Veda is the oldest holy book. It has, now my group, or anybody, if you forget that song, the word for songs here is hymns, you can just write songs. So I'm going to write hymns/songs. On the test, you could just write whichever one you remember. It has hymns And these are dedicated to for the Aryan gods. All right. So I'm going to give you some time to look at this. My group, again, I want you to write these down on your sheets. Right here on this sheet, you can write this here. The important things that I want you to be getting out of this. Again, this part, the brown, will be there for you. So it's a holy book, and it has these hymns or songs in it, and they're for the Aryan gods. This is the important takeaways from this chunk. Okay? And you know for a fact that this question is going to be on the test. So practice this. Know that it's a holy book that has songs or hymns and prayers to the Aryan gods in it. If you know those things, you practice those things, you'll be all set for tomorrow. And even if you don't remember exactly how to spell some of these things, that I can help you with. As long as you have the information and you can tell me what the Rig Veda was. So I'm just going to give you a couple more seconds, but you can also always pause the video if you need to make sure that you get this down. So again, this is the first short answer question that will for sure be on the test. All right. So I'm going to go on to number 2. All right. So number 2, what are 3 facts about the Persian Empire you would include in a summary? So again, remember the first page of this packet, my kids, right here, you can use this and see the same pictures to help you. So I'm going to give an example of what my group might write for this. But again, if you look back in your, for the rest of you, if you look back in your study guide, this paragraph right here, so on the 3rd page of writing, or the 2nd full page, right down here where it starts talking about Cyrus, this is the paragraph about the Persian Empire. So all you need to do is make sure that you know 3 things from that paragraph. My group, it's right here on this that I gave you. All right. So 3 things about the Persian Empire. So we can start by saying, one fact about the Persian Empire is and again, my students, this brown part will already be there for you. One fact about the Persian Empire is, well, let's refresh our memories on the Persian Empire. So this dude right here, Cyrus II, he's the one who started the empire. So right there, as long as you remember his name, you can remember one fact. If any of you listen to Miley Cyrus, right, it's the same as her name. So just think of Miley Cyrus. So Cyrus II founded the Persian Empire. So I'm going to use that as one of my facts. Again, I'm going to go over a ton of examples that you could do. You don't need to do this fact. You just need to make sure that you have 3. All right. One fact about the Persian Empire is it was started or founded It was started by Cyrus the Second. So that means that his dad must have also been named Cyrus. That's why he's the second Cyrus in this family. All right. So the Persian Empire went from the Mediterranean Sea over here, and then all the way out to the Indus River, which here you can see it says Indus right here. So it stretched all the way across here. So that's something that you could say. You could say that Persian culture was linked to the Babylonians, Lydians, and Egyptians. If you remember those groups from last unit, and you really think you could remember that fact, you could do that one. At its height, Persia was made up of 20 provinces that were all connected by roads. All right? I think I might include something about the roads because the roads are really important. King Darius the First was the next king of the Persian Empire. Darius brought the Persian Empire to India. So he's the one that took over this other part and stretched it out to the lighter green all the way to India. All right, and roads and trade by the Persians helped connect India to Central Asia. And Zoroastrianism is a religion founded by the Persian prophet Zoroaster that was brought to South Asia by the Persians. Well, that, I don't know if I could remember how to spell the name of that religion, so I think I might go with who the next king was and about how the roads and trades helped connect India to the rest of Central Asia. Again, any of these facts, as long as you have 3, you'll get full credit. So now I'm going to go on a second fact or another fact. And since I already restated the whole thing right here, this time I'm just going to say another fact is. Another fact is that King Darius the First was the next king of the Persian Empire. Some of you guys are Buffalo Bills fans. You might have remembered Marcel Darius. So that's how I remember this guy. So first I think of Cyrus, like Miley Cyrus, and then I think of Darius, like Marcel Darius. Okay, so first we had Cyrus, then we had Darius. Another fact is the next king was Darius the First. So there must have been more Dariuses after him. Darius the First. It looks like a big I. And so here, if I wanted my third fact to be after this, I could say Darius brought the Persian Empire to India. That could be my third fact. I could be done right there. I'm just going to give this example of the roads and trade just because, hint, hint, that might be important to know for some of the multiple choice questions. So it'll be good practice to do right here. So a third fact, you could use a different transition. You could say, finally, a third fact so the Persians roads and trades helped connect India to Central Asia. This part. This part. The brown, otherwise, is what the sentence stems will be. I forgot to switch my markers, but Persians' roads and trade helped connect India to Central Asia. Because remember, the Himalayan mountains otherwise made it hard. But then when they built all these roads and they started trading, they started to be able to get connected to the other countries in Central Asia. All right, and I'm actually going to erase this part and write with the other option that you could do. So you can do either one of these that I show. I'm just going to say the other one, the third fact, is Darius brought the Persian Empire to India. So if that one is easier for you to remember, then you can write down what I'm going to write next, okay? So first, I'm going to leave this up for a little bit. So if you want this third fact, make sure you copy this down now. Maybe make it your second or something, because I'm going to erase, starting at this blue line down, and just change it in a second, just so people have a couple options for what they can do. So my other option, Darius brought he brought the Persian Empire to India. Remember, either one of those is fine, and just remember, if you choose to do this option, just remember that the roads are really important, that the roads from the Persian Empire helped link India to Central Asia. All right, so give you start erasing, but remember, you can always pause this video if you need to. Okay? So the third and final short answer question, again, these will definitely be on the test tomorrow, is list 3 main events in Siddhartha's life that you would include in a summary. All right. So again, we have the information in our review packets. So the information about Siddhartha starts on the 3rd page at the bottom of your review packet and then goes on to the next one. All right, and if you have one of these packets, it is the 4th page in here. You see this picture. Okay? So, again, there's a lot of answers that you could do for this, a lot of possibilities, and you just need to remember 3. So pick 3 that really stick out to you, that you're like, yes, I know I can remember that one. And those are the ones that you want to write down and to get more practice. So when you get to the test tomorrow, that'll be like, oh, this is so easy. I already know this. All right, so a sentence then start out. Let me just make sure I'm main event. All right, so again, my group, you'll have this brown part. This is just the sentence stem to start us off. One main event in Siddhartha's life was, so let's review him. So he is known as the Buddha, or the enlightened one, which means purely good. But I want to start at the beginning of his life and give something that was really important at the beginning. When he was a boy, his dad kept him safe inside the palace. When he grew up, he left the palace. He saw a sick person for the first time. Then he saw a monk who did not own anything, but he seemed happy and calm and free from suffering or pain. Siddhartha wanted to be like him, so he left his home. All right, so I think that this was a really important part of his life. When he saw this monk, he wanted to learn more about how this guy could have nothing and still be calm and at peace and free from suffering. So this was a turning point in his life, because before that, he was like living a bougie life up in the palace. So this was an important point at which he left that life behind and started a simple life of going out and trying to become enlightened. All right, so one main event in Siddhartha's life was when he saw a monk who had nothing, but he was still happy. I'm going to say here, free from suffering. But if you get to the test and you forget that, saying something, saying he was still happy, he was still at peace, those would be okay. He was still free from suffering. And Siddhartha wanted to learn more, so he left home. And again, there's other answers that you could have put. You could have started earlier in his life. You could have said when he was a kid, his dad kept him in the palace. Okay? So you could also do that. So another event was he joined. Oops. I'm going to start this with the blue again. He joined a group of monks And he fasted and meditated with them for 6 years. Remember, meditating is you're thinking, you're clearing your head. All right, this time for my transition, I'm just going to say finally. Okay, so when he became enlightened, it was when he saw that beautiful morning star. So finally, and this is after he left the group, remember? Finally, he left the group. So he left the group, he saw a beautiful morning star. And this is when he became enlightened and known as the Buddha. So if this is a little bit overwhelming to you, I know it's a lot of writing, you'll have the sentence stems, and remember that you can pick different facts. You can pick shorter facts, and you can write it shorter when you're actually on the test. And my group, you're gonna have help with spelling, and you can tell me your thoughts as long as you know this information. You can tell me your thoughts on it, and then I'll help you write it. So even if this just means you rewatch some of this video, some of the parts that you still need practice on, make sure that you know 3 events from his life. Remember, he was kept in the palace by his dad when he was a boy. Then when he left as an adult, he saw a monk who had nothing, but he was still happy. He was still free from suffering. So then he was like, I want to learn more about this. So he left home. He started this whole journey, and he joined a group of monks. Monks are people, who are very simple living, just like him in this packet. So he fasted. He didn't eat much food, and he meditated. So he just practiced thinking and reflecting and breathing for 6 years. All right? And then finally, he left the group because he started feeling sick and weak. And that's when he ate and got refreshed and started his journey again. And then he saw a beautiful morning star and became enlightened and known as the Buddha. You could also say there's more after this. Then he traveled and taught people for 50 years. Simple. You could say that one. He said that all people could reach enlightenment, that state of pure goodness. So anything from this page or anything from your review sheet is fair game. You just need to know 3 things. So for the first one, you're talking about the Rig Veda. The second one, you're giving 3 facts about the Persian Empire. And this third one, 3 main events from Siddhartha's life, from the Buddha's life. All right, so I know this video is a little bit long, but I hope it helps you. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and rewatch this video. And good luck on your test. Bye.